What's up, guys? It's Burn the Ship Podcast. We're a podcast that welcomes entrepreneurs to come on and tell us their story. Tell us how you started in the business. You know, tell us your struggles, and tell all our community what to do better next time, or what's really killing it for you this time. So, Austin, I've known you really my whole life, and I just kind of ran back into you from some of your videos, and I was glad to reach out and go, hey, I'd love to have you on, and we appreciate you coming, man. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm glad we reconnected. I'm happy to jump on here, and hopefully today some of this content can help other entrepreneurs.
Sure, sure. Well, tell us a little bit about your company and what you do and how you got into it.
Yeah, so my primary company is in mortgage finance. I work with Union Home Mortgage, based out of Ohio, but I'm located in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. And that's what I do mostly is mortgage finance. My wife and I, like I was telling you just a second ago, we had a retail clothing store for over 20 years. And so she went to school for fashion merchandising and marketing. So she was the creative one on the front end. And of course, I handled the books and the financing and the boring stuff on the back end.
Sure. Well, it's only boring if you probably liked it. It's boring for somebody like me that wants to hit the streets and do sales, and you probably love that.
Yeah, I know. I can be an introvert a lot of times, but a lot of this business, you got to get out there and be an extrovert as
You
well in
100%
that
do.
sales position.
Yeah, you 100% do. What is tell me how long have you been doing mortgage finance?
Yeah, so I would say I've been doing this for about 6 to 7 years now.
Okay.
So yeah, I started right before or right when COVID was just becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And so, it was
Tough
insane.
times.
Yeah, yeah, the refinances were crazy. Folks were moving to Texas, buying homes sight unseen. I can't tell you how many agents would just go around FaceTiming homes and just, selling homes. Folks had never seen them before. They're moving to Texas. It was crazy, and they're paying $100,000 to $200,000 over asking price, just to get the house. There would be 20 to 30 offers on each home. So yeah, it was a crazy time back then, and
Well,
not that it's
I'll tell you
now.
what didn't happen is that same thing wasn't happening in California. So you're lucky you lived in Texas and we lived in Georgia. So I'm in the credit card processing business. So if I was in California, I might have put nails in the door and shut it down. But we were
Yeah.
Georgia and Texas were those more of those conservative states that, really didn't pay as much attention to COVID than the other states. So that was really lucky.
Oh, for sure, man. I know. And, the other piece of that, our retail clothing store that we had, all of a sudden, folks were initially told they couldn't go out in public, right? And couldn't go shop. And so then we pivoted quick and, built a website, started selling, online. We did complimentary front door delivery. I mean, we just got super creative. And it was awesome how our customer base just wanted to support us and be there for us. But at the same time, they still needed things and they
Sure they did.
still, yeah. So initially, there was no shopping, but then Texas being more conservative, that changed pretty quick and folks could come in. And then it was pretty much just, we basically do whatever you wanted. If someone came in and wanted to wear a mask, we respect it. But for the most part, we didn't really do that.
You didn't do like Costco and hey, pull your mask above your nose. That's what they did. I called everybody at Costco doctor for like 2 years.
That's
So,
awesome.
so yeah, no, it was a weird time, and you had to, kind of move and shake and think differently and,
Yeah.
pivot your business a little bit. I know that, I had a restaurant that was taking payments from me, and I really called all the ones that were, that I had signed and they were personal to me and going, just how are you doing and that kind of thing. And the guy was like, well, I mean, I can't do business at all. I was like, well, have you thought about cooking, 100 hamburgers, wrapping them in aluminum foil, walking outside to the street and selling them in people's cars like people used to do donuts? He goes, Jay, that's crazy. I was like, no, it's not. No, it's not. You would make a lot of sales doing that because
Yeah.
no restaurants a lot of them were closing down. A lot of them were, I said, you would be surprised. You probably sell them all out. I was like, I said, you got to think outside the box, man. You got to think
Oh,
outside the
yeah.
box.
Man, for sure. And that's when alcohol delivery, you could buy margaritas from a Mexican restaurant and get them delivered. That's when that became a thing. Because before that, you couldn't really do that. There was no
No.
guardrails on selling alcohol, for delivery services. So,
Which I always find wild because number one, I'm in the credit card processing business, so however you can do sales, do them. That's what I
right.
say, right? Because I make money when you make money, but it was it. I always found it funny because you can go to a liquor store and get all that stuff, so you get to go stuff. So why wouldn't you just go to the liquor store, buy your margarita stuff, and then leave? I'm like, you're spending twice as much money on that, or three times. So I always thought it was funny,
Yeah.
but they were selling them. People were taking those in the bag, and what they had to do in Georgia, I don't know, is tape it up or staple it in a like a brown bag, and
Yeah.
you had to staple it or tape it. That was what made it legal to go in your car.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like when you go in the drive-through daiquiri places, like in Louisiana, as long as there's the half of the straw
Yeah,
wrapper still on it, it's considered a sealed container.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, kind of the same thing. Everyone was making it up. Man, everyone was just doing the best that we could,
yeah, for
like
sure.
on the fly, just figuring it out, trying to, make the sales, keep your customers happy,
Yeah,
keep your staff. I mean, I think we had 8 or 10 employees at the time,
yeah.
and trying to keep everyone paid. And it was some crazy times, man.
Yeah, it was. Tell me a little bit about the ups and downs of the mortgage business because it was like really good, really in that first year and a half, and then the Fed shot up and it was like 9 or 10, and then how have you navigated through these up? Because right now it's pretty good. What is it, 5, something like that?
Yeah, yeah, there's a little something going on in the Middle East. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah,
it,
yep.
but
The gas is
it's
high because of that. Yep.
yeah, yeah, it's affected mortgage rates as well, and so anytime there's uncertainty in the market, things go up because it's risk, higher risk. Everyone kind of gets scared, they get a little more conservative and things just go up. So, I mean, to answer your question, like I said, so kind of rewind a little bit. My wife and I, we moved to Texas in 2007 and we opened our clothing store called Austin Lauren. It was going amazing. Like our investors, first 6 months, like, okay, how can we cookie cutter this? We want to do more of these. We're thinking franchises. And then, of course, right after that was the housing crash of '09.
Hmm.
And so, we're like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? And so, we had just been in business a short time, just moved to Dallas, Fort Worth, bought a new house, bought a new truck. We just had our son cruise. And I'm like, I'm cashing literally every other paycheck. I'm like, what in the world are we going to do here? And so, I grew up on a farm there in Dallas, Georgia, raced motocross my whole life, worked on heavy equipment. So, my father-in-law had a good friend that was a GM of a car dealership. And so I applied there and got hired and just worked my way up at the car business. So I would work during the days at the dealership and at nights doing the books for our clothing store. And so I did that for over 10 years. And then COVID happened, and I got a call, never forget, on April Fool's Day at like 8 o'clock at night. And my boss goes, "Hey man, I'm so sorry, but your position has been eliminated." And at that time, I'd worked myself up to upper management, and so they started cutting all the upper management roles just to cut expenses. And so that's when again, another pivot and got into mortgage finance. So, when I first got into mortgage, it was just a roller coaster because rates were down, 2.5%. Everyone was refinancing. You're working, 20 hours a day just trying to keep everybody happy. It was just crazy.
Hmm.
And then the Fed, like you said, just rates skyrocketed just to slow things down. And I'll tell you, here recently, we just now started to see that decrease. We hit 5.99, 5.75 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, before
Hmm.
everything started in the Middle East. And then, it ticked back up again. So I know myself, a lot of mortgage finance professionals, and even homeowners are still just waiting for the Fed to lower those rates and make those cuts that they keep saying that they're gonna make. So
Sure. It's going to be tough during these conflicts of that happening.
yeah,
If I have to foresee it, but what do they say? Marry the house, date the rate. Is that what? Is
100%.
that the? That's the saying in y'all's industry.
It
So,
is because that's the thing. when folks were moving from California or from wherever they were coming from to Texas, they weren't talking about the rate. They just
Mm-mm.
wanted to get the house. And so what's happening is there's so many folks out there that are just thinking, well, I don't want to buy. I'm going to wait until the rates come down. And that sounds good until the rates come down and all of those folks jump off the fence. Then they go to buy. Well, then now we're already in a somewhat of a housing shortage.
Mm-hmm.
And if everyone goes and buys, then it's just going to drive the market back up where you're going to have to offer over
Sure.
list price, over appraisal. You're going to have to come out of pocket cash to make up that delta. So I think if you're right now on the fence, you're thinking, man, I really like this house, but I think the rates are going to come down. You're 100% correct. You know, marry the house, date the rate, because if you wait, chances are that house isn't going to be available.
No, it's there's good and bad of buying that house in that situation. And there's always going to be that because one thing's going to be up, the other one's going to be down. So if you're in a housing shortage, which we are, even in
Hmm.
Georgia here, you know, that in itself is going to be a seller's market because there's not enough inventory to cover everybody that's wanting to buy.
That's
Then you
right.
go, okay, well, let's say it's a 7% rate. And they're like, let's wait. Well, then your inventory just opened up because everybody's thinking like you. You're like, all right, well, I'll pay 2% more for 2 years, 3 years.
Hmm.
And I've done this a couple times, so I'm speaking from experience. So like I go and then I'll refinance in 2 to 3 years. Once it hits, I think is going to be that low, and I've only paid that percentage for 2 years, which typically is not more than what I've paid over on the house. Right? It's not going to be
Hmm.
$150,000 more in that 2 years of rate. It might be 20 grand or 25
Yeah.
grand. But if I'm just talking about straight cash, and then when I'm explaining to my young guys if they were buying a house, I go, that's what you got to do. You got to do the math of if I don't get it for 5 years to lower the rate for 5 years where's that point of no return of losing money. But I mean, I'd have to
Hmm.
say like within a 5 year span in American history, rates go down multiple times and then go back
Yeah.
up. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you just got to pick that right time. I don't foresee the rates ever getting down to that 2.2 or 2.5 again, and they probably shouldn't.
They shouldn't. No.
They probably
Yeah.
shouldn't for economy from an economy standpoint. They probably shouldn't. But you know, we're the same age. Our parents paid 20%
Yeah.
in the
I
eight
know.
in the 80s
I
and
tell
early
folks
80s
that.
and late
Yeah.
70s. Our parents paid 20% interest on their houses. That's how much it was, and that was actually um, during the Iran Contra thing with the oil problem. That's in the
Right.
80s. That's exactly was when it was when the Georgia president. Oh God dang! What am I?
Carter.
Carter. He was in office, and it was there was lines at gas stations and all that. And if you just read your
Hmm.
history, that's the same exact thing that the rates are going about. In fact, in the same part of the world, but that's always going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're spot on. And folks, we forget, about that. And, I was talking to my wife's grandparents and like you said, I think they said their first home was like right around 19%. And they were thrilled to get that. They thought that was great,
Mm.
and then now folks are up in arms about, 7% or 6.5. And just because we got spoiled, you hear about that 2 or 2.5% rate, which, to your point earlier, that's not good. The American engine, the economy needs to be around that 5% range for most bankers that I talk to, maybe 4.75, something like that, just for a healthy economy.
That's right.
So I think if we get back down in the fives, which we're not far from there, that's a pretty good spot to be on.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I feel like if I can get into the 4 to 4.5 mark, that's where it is for me, and it
Yeah.
probably will. Look, we've never learned from our mistakes, so some politician that doesn't know anything from anything is going to go, I'm going to try to get it drove down to 3% again, and then that's I hope they make that mistake because I'll refinance then.
Yeah, for sure. Something that's a good point I want to bring up here, maybe for some, first time home buyers listening to this podcast. we got a contract yesterday, and I've been working with these buyers for maybe 6 months, and it's a $500,000 purchase, first time home buyers, which is pretty insane to think that now a first time home is going to be $500,000,
Sure.
but that's just where the market is. So what we're doing, the realtor and I worked together, and we negotiated a 2-1 buy down. And so we're qualifying the buyers at a 5.99.
Yeah.
It's going to cost 11 grand for the buy down. So the seller is paying that 11,000.
Sure.
So year one, their rate's going to be 3.99. Year two, 4.99. And then going forward for the remainder of the term, it's going to be 5.99. And they're getting that savings paid for by the seller, which, for $11,000. And that is a much better gain than if they were to ask for an $11,000 discount on that house. So they're going to save way more in the long run up front on
Sure.
that buy down. And
And
that's
they
a great strategy.
and they still after that third year, they still if it's 5.5, once they roll into that, they still can refinance if the Fed if the number is below that, if it's at 3.5, yeah, you're going to lose a year of that because you're in that zone where you can't do it, but you still can refinance after that third year.
Oh, 100%. And
Yeah.
what's really great about the buy downs, there's different, you can do a 1-1, a 2-1, 3-1. There's different, options. But if you do the buy down, that money is held, and say to your point, in 2 years, the market makes sense and you refinance, you don't lose that money. That money is held in escrow and it can be applied to the new loan. Whereas if you were to say, hey, I want to buy my rate down out of the gate, during the purchase transaction, I want to put 20 grand to buy this rate down.
Hmm.
And then who knows, 2 years later, the market comes down below that initial rate. You've lost that 20 grand. You're not getting it back.
That's right.
Whereas if you do that buy down, you can use that. If you sell the house, it goes towards a principal reduction. So it's a much better strategy for
But when
sure.
when they first started doing these buy downs, you didn't get that. Because when we looked at the buy downs early on, that you didn't get that in escrow. It was just like, hey, if you're basically gambling on that buy down. It's how I was explained to when we were doing it. You were gambling on it to pay down the rate, and it was, I think for our house it was $40,000 or whatever. It was more expensive, but
Mhm.
maybe 50, and you have to pay that cash, right? So,
Yeah,
anyways, not everything is good for everybody. You just got to look at your situation, I think, and,
that's
and
right.
and go. And you said it's crazy to that the houses are first time home buyers are 500 grand. Well, look again, that's a regional thing, and New York and New Jersey and that they've always been first time buy homers at 500, 750, even $1 million.
Hmm.
Because the
Yeah.
real estate is expensive. In fact, I read a huge article on the in Atlanta and in Georgia, we were under the average price a long, long time, way longer than we probably should have. Prices on houses have gone up since COVID, but they're really just catching up with the rest of America in a lot of
Right.
cases.
Yeah. No,
So
that's a good point for sure. Um, I think I talked to my folks, they're still there in Atlanta. And here in Texas, I call it mailbox money. So when I moved to Texas in 2007, I'd never heard of mineral rights. In Georgia, we didn't have that. So
mm,
here in Texas, with the oil and fracking that they can do, you may live in a neighborhood and all of a sudden, you get a knock on your front door and you start getting 20 grand a month mailbox money because they found natural gas or oil under your
sure,
property. And so that really stimulates the economy out here, I think, because that's money folks are getting that's driven back into retail, ice cream shops, that
everything.
stimulates credit card processing because people are swiping those cards, they're buying houses, they're doing all the things because they have this additional cash flow. So I think it is very regional to your point. It just depends on, where you live. And mineral rights weren't even a thing that I'd ever heard of back in Georgia.
No, no, well, no, no, not really. I have a friend that has bought mineral rights in Mississippi for just the soil in itself because it's so rich that they can make crazy amounts of money, and especially with the war going on in Russia, well, Russia and the Ukrainian war, I didn't realize that a big percentage of the world's fertilizer comes from Russia because of the ice and the therma.
Mhm.
So the only other country that's like that could be rich in that is Canada, and they don't even go up there and do that yet. Somebody will, and
Wow.
start farming that rich soil that's under the snow and under the ice.
Hmm.
But this guy bought mineral rights from a place in Mississippi, and he's selling it now. And it's just it's really not even, you don't grow your plants in that, you throw it on top of it.
Wow.
Like an
Really?
acre, 300 pounds can cover an acre with this stuff.
Oh, that's
So it's
amazing.
just getting the minerals in the dirt and the soil that you already have. So it's pretty
Hmm.
cool. But we're talking about, this bag retails online for, $30 for a 2 pound bag. So
Yeah.
so it's not cheap.
Wow.
It's
Yeah,
expensive.
for sure. Yeah. I had a closing yesterday, and now it's funny that the verbiage has changed from the land seller. The land sellers are retaining the mineral rights. So if you were to buy a new home, you own maybe 8 to 10 feet of soil underneath your house,
Yeah.
and that original landowner is retaining that soil beneath and those mineral rights. So it's just funny how things like that evolve.
Yeah, that's kind of like the owning the sky above a building, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's funny. I never thought about that. Okay, so but obviously that gets you a better deal on the house, probably in a lot of circumstances.
You would think, man, but I don't know. I don't know if they've given you any credit back for not owning the remainder of, of the earth under your house.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Well,
Yeah.
Austin, man, I really appreciate you talking to us, man. It was good catching up. I want to do this again for sure. And when you come back to visit your parents, give me a call. We'll go grab a beer. And when I'm in Dallas, I'll call you. But tell everybody how to get a hold of you, because we'll be sending this to you so you can push it on your social media stuff as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm on the socials at GoMazing1. And yeah, email agomez@uhm.com. Cell 770-883-7127. Got to represent the GA number still.
Our my number is 770-8832 as
Is
well.
it really?
It's just different for you. Yeah. Well, we probably got cell phones at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. The old Nokia block
Yeah,
phone, right?
of course, they had the snake game on there.
Hey, thank God they didn't have camera phones or social media back then. We'd be
I
in so
think
much trouble.
I thank God every day
Yeah,
that
amen,
wasn't
brother.
available, that was not available. I thank it every day for sure. We didn't
Yeah.
have any sense either, so
No,
zero
heck no.
cents.
Yeah, good time. So for sure. Well, I burned the ship. I'm all in
Yeah, you
on
are
my
multiple
career.
times.
Yeah, and you got to, man. You got to be full committed. You can't waver. You can't be lukewarm. You got to go all in. Family, business, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, you got to
That's
go
right.
all in.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Have a good day. Burn the ship, guys.